Former General Michael Flynn is gone. He is done. Get out of here. Actually, he got himself out of here. He showed himself the door. Instead of being kicked out the door.
Are you kicking me out the door?
No, he got himself out the door.
You're kicking me out the door.
So he's done. Now, let me give you some details on what happened. Now, again, last night, Flynn resigned after just 24 days in office as the National Security Advisor to President Donald Trump. Now, 24 days, man. That broke a record. I mean, normally people stay at the NSC for about 2.5 years. That's like your average. 24 days. Gone. Now, this, of course, comes after reports about his conversations with the Russian ambassador before the Justice Department had actually warned the Trump administration about possible blackmail relating to these conversations. So, again, that's fun. So let me get into the details here, and this is from the Washington Post. Now, they write, Flynn stepped down amid mounting pressure on the Trump administration to account for its false statements about General Flynn's conduct after the Washington Post reported on Monday that the Justice Department had warned the White House last month that Flynn had so mischaracterized his communications with the Russian diplomat that he might be vulnerable to blackmail by Moscow. That is very interesting. What kind of blackmail? We'll get to the details in a minute. In a letter to Trump, Flynn said he had, quote, inadvertently briefed the vice president-elect and others with incomplete information regarding my phone calls with the Russian ambassador. I have sincerely apologized to the president and the vice president. So this happened before Donald Trump assumed power. So that's pretty important. Now, I love the statement, I inadvertently briefed the vice president-elect and others with incomplete information. What is that supposed to mean? He's basically saying, hey, I didn't lie. I didn't lie to you guys. I just inadvertently briefed you with incomplete information. Fascinating. I love how that's like his excuse. No, he straight up lied to Vice President Pence. But anyway, now what is this in relation to? Again, it has to do with the discussions of him having discussions, I should say, about U.S. sanctions with Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak. No, Sergei. See, I talked to Sergei, right? But don't worry, we didn't talk about sanctions. No, we talked about hockey and snow. That's what we talked about. Nothing to do with the sanctions on Russia that we, of course, have a vested interest in rolling back so that our Secretary of State could, make some $500 million oil deals with Russia. That kind of hurts our friends over there, and we want to do business with Russia. We want to open up some trade relations. So, fun, right? So that's what they're going on. But of course, those sanctions, they never came up. Not once during any of these phone calls. Except they did. Now, Pence, of course, and White House spokesperson Sean Spicer and others, relying on Flynn's accounts, him essentially saying, no, we didn't talk about that at all, publicly defended him and repeatedly said that sanctions were not discussed. But again, according to officials, they actually were. They were discussed. In fact, U.S. intelligence and law enforcement officials have said that sanctions were a main subject of Flynn's conversation with Kislyak on the day that the Obama administration announced a series of punitive measures aimed at punishing Moscow for its supposed meddling in the 2016 presidential election. Now, look, let's talk about that for just a second. Now, we're talking about doing propaganda, right? We're not talking about them going in and hacking the voting machines. That's ridiculous. There's absolutely no evidence of that. But if you want to talk about doing propaganda, well, all governments do propaganda. The United States itself has done propaganda to influence other countries' elections. Is it that much of a stretch to think that Russia wanted to do some propaganda to help out their old pal Trump? Doesn't seem like such a stretch, knowing that we ourselves are guilty of doing it often. So yeah, propaganda. And now the question is, was it effective? See, you could make an argument that, well, look who's president. But I tend to err on the side of It's not the Russian propaganda that did in Hillary Clinton. It's Hillary Clinton that did in Hillary Clinton. She was such a terrible, bad candidate that nobody could trust that they'd rather put in, Donald Trump into office. Again, she was that bad of a candidate that they took a look at that guy and Donald Trump said, yeah, that he's better. I don't agree with that, but that's what, unfortunately, a great deal of Americans tend to think. So, anyway. Now, again, propaganda, right? And look, when it comes to who Russia actually preferred, well, they certainly did not like Hillary Clinton. They don't like Hillary Clinton. That's pretty obvious. They didn't like the Obama administration. So there you go. I mean, of course, they would prefer somebody who would be open to negotiation and deals. And look, Donald Trump put in Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Rex Tillerson, former CEO of ExxonMobil, was negotiating an oil deal with Russia. It makes sense. Yeah, of course you're going to do what makes sense for business. And look, it's money. And the only reason that Donald Trump likes Putin so much is because Putin says nice things about him. I mean, that's how much of a child we have for president. But anyway. Now, U.S. officials said that Flynn told Kislyak that Moscow should not overreact to the sanctions, indicating that the two sides would soon be in a position to revisit the matter, presumably in Moscow's favor. Now, the Washington Post continues. Flynn's undoing was more directly tied to his inaccurate accounts of those contacts to senior Trump officials, including Pence, who officials said was incensed to learn that Flynn has not told him the truth. I am so absolutely mad that you didn't tell me the truth a month ago when the Justice Department told me that you were lying. But I just had to wait for a long time. I waited for over a month before actually getting super mad. Fascinating. Now, Flynn again denied that he had discussed the subject in an interview with the Washington Post last week, only to back away from that statement a day later by acknowledging through a spokesperson that while he couldn't recall speaking about the sanctions, he couldn't rule it out. I might have talked about it. I don't know. It was between the talking about the hockey and the snow. Of course they talked about the sanctions. Duh. He's going out there and saying, well, I mean, I don't think I didn't. I don't know if I talked about it. Might have. It might have come up. No, you would remember. You're doing a cover your ass operation. So, look, let me tell you the real issue here. The issue, of course, is that I guess the issue with the Trump administration is that they're trying to say that he's mad at, that Pence was mad at him, and that's why he decided to resign. Well, I can't have Pence and Trump mad at me, so I'm going to go resign. Now, it's actually different. Do they actually care that he talked to Russia? No. But it makes it look bad. It makes the Trump administration look bad. It makes it so the people that were propping up the Russia stories, well, it gives them an air of credibility when they actually do have some sort of dealings with Russia. Again, I'm not somebody who bought the entire, oh my God, Russia won the election. No. Russia did propaganda, yes, like all governments do. But did they directly go and influence the election, or did they have that much of an influence? No, I don't think so. I think, again, Hillary Clinton was such a bad, terrible candidate that any sort of Russian influence propaganda, I think, was negligible. She was likely to lose anyway. But anyway, now, look, and to be honest, like, Flynn resigned, but he wasn't fired. But I think that it would have came to that anyway because of all the negative blowback that this had been getting. Now, according to one senior White House official, Trump, again, did not fire Flynn. Rather, Flynn made the decision to resign on his own late Monday evening because of what this official said was, quote, the cumulative effect of damaging news coverage about his conversations with the Russian envoy. And that, I think, is, yeah, I agree with that reasoning because he made the Trump administration look bad. And that's what it is. Now, and what's funny is that he makes the Trump administration look worse because now you had Kellyanne Conway defending him. You had Sean Spicer going out there, Spicy, going and defending this. So, and look, it embarrassed them. One thing Donald Trump doesn't want to be is embarrassed. Now, this official who requested anonymity to speak candidly about the situation said Trump does not relish firing people. This is fun. Despite his television persona on The Apprentice. Now, look, I am deeply amused by the idea that he doesn't like firing people. No, it's just not Donald Trump. It's just not his style. He doesn't like firing people from their jobs. Now, this is a guy whose catchphrase is, "You're fired." I'm just saying. Now, he continues. There's obviously were a lot of issues, but the president was hanging in there. Buying some time was part of the plan, and I think Flynn just figured, if it's imminent to the boss, then let's make it immediate. So now let's go to the hero of the story. The person who helped facilitate Flynn's downfall. Now, the Post reported on Monday that then acting U.S. Attorney General Sally Q. Yates told the White House counsel last month that Flynn's misleading statements to Pence and others made him vulnerable to blackmail by Russia. Hey, we remember when you were talking with Sergey, right? In between the hockey and the snow, you kind of talked about those sanctions. If you don't want your boss to know and embarrass him, well, then maybe, I don't know, you could maybe do something for us. That's possible that conversation happened. I don't necessarily know. It could have happened. Don't know. Anything's possible, I guess. But anyway, now, let's see. His government, of course, they explained that Russia, whose own government would have known that sanctions were discussed, could use that against him. Now, here's the thing, right? So you remember Sally Yates? She got fired. Well, I thought Donald Trump doesn't like firing people, but he fired Sally Yates for not going and following his orders on the Muslim ban. So here comes Sally Yates now, after that, for some revenge. Sally Yates with the chair. Here she comes. Now, again, remember, she got fired. Now, here's payback. Payback's a bitch. Yates essentially invited Flynn to his own red wedding. He walked right into it. Amazing. And now, of course, the White House appears to have let its repeated false statements about Flynn stand for weeks after that notification from Sally Yates, and has yet to account for what it did with the warning that she conveyed. You know what this makes me think? Lock him up. Lock him up. Remember, this is the guy at the RNC that led the chant of lock her up. Lock him up. Lock him up. I'm not kidding. He actually did break the law. So in 1799, the government actually passed a law against unauthorized individuals negotiating with foreign governments over conflicts. Now, I don't know if you're are sanctions a conflict? I would think so. So for me, I would think that yes, that is a conflict. Of course, this law never going to be enforced, never was enforced, very, very unlikely to, but it is technically on the books. So, hey, if you're the law and order candidate, which Donald Trump ran as, well, hey, you know what to do. Lock him up. Lock him up. But anyway, now, finally, some of Trump's political advisors felt Flynn should not be fired in the midst of intense media scrutiny and calls for the resignation from Democratic opponents. Part of me said, quote, nobody should be firing this guy. Not in the day that Nancy Pelosi said, fire this guy. You've got hashtag fire Flynn blazing across the internet by a bunch of Trump detractors. But by Monday evening, Flynn had decided he could no longer survive. That official said, quote, it was when you feel like you're looking around the room and asking, where's my friend? The Pence thing was huge. He's not somebody who's quick to anger. That was very telling to everybody. So there's your reaction. Finally, the White House official said, quote, it was a sad moment. Forgive me if I don't shed a tear. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.